Hi. So I would like to talk to you a little bit today about heroes. And I'm sorry if I'm disappointing anybody before we even start. I'm not going to be going into too much detail about the heroes that fly around, the mutant kind. I want to talk about the much more exciting type of hero. Now, these can be fictional heroes, they can be real-life heroes. Some of them we love, and others we love to hate. I'm talking about the type that exist in documentaries and feature films. So 8 years ago, I got my big break. I had spent years working hard, dreaming big, and I finally got my foot in the door by getting a job making tea and coffee for a film production company. It was pretty big. Now, when I was there, I wanted to learn as much as I could from my boss and the other people working there. And I kept hearing this phrase used over and over again, that one great film can change the world. So I was learning, listening, trying to take as much in as I could. And I found myself watching and rewatching certain films that had connected and that had created a tangible impact on the world. So as I was piecing together how these films worked, what methods they used to connect to an audience, I was looking at ways in which we could potentially involve ourselves in projects with a similar kind of an impact. So anyway, one morning I ended up being asked to attend a meeting with a guy called John Batsek, and I was really nervous. It was very early on in my career, so I went along to this meeting knowing full well that John, as an accomplished producer, he had forgotten more than I knew. So I went in, and he sat me down, he said, "Look, I just want to show you something. I want to get your feedback. We're looking for support for this on the production and the distribution side. Tell me what you think." And he showed me 5 minutes of some footage that eventually ends up as this film.
The people are like a giant, and the governments, they're like this little man. Why is it that this little small man can control this giant?
The more we are, the stronger we become.
King Hamad let everyone in exile come back, and that was the first time me and my sisters saw Bahrain.
My son Mohammed is an American citizen. I was following the news from Libya. I was worried about my son.
أنا بسوريا صدقني كلمة الأسد بتخوف الناس. مشان هيك رح ضل سلمية ولازم ضل سلمية.
I was gonna go out, I decided, and protest.
I knew that we'd need everyone on the ground.
So in that morning when I saw that film for the first time, everything changed for me. The activists that were the real-life heroes in this film, the strength, their courageousness, the fact that they were fighting oppression and trying to champion basic human rights, not just for them, but for everyone in their countries. It forged this incredibly emotional response in me. Not only did it change the sort of course of my career and the type of films that I wanted to be a part of, but it had me consider more and more about the methods and why was that film so impactful on me. So, when it comes to a subject matter, an activist filmmaker already has a very, very tight relationship with that subject or that cause. And the thing that I find the most problematic for a lot of these activist filmmakers when I meet with them is the fact that they struggle with being too close to their subjects. Now, what I mean by that is they already have this connection with the subject. They understand the reasons why they're wanting to make their film. But what I have to say to them and what we discuss in depth is, how do you create that response in an audience who's perhaps never had any kind of relationship with that subject or cause or that time? And so this is when I start looking towards these guys. So I point them into the direction of how superhero movies are made and what is it about them that means that they're so popular. Well, essentially, and by the way, this is not an exact science, so I'm not saying that everyone should go away and tell their activist filmmaker friends that they need to be making superhero franchises. No. It's looking at the ways in which these films are put together, okay? So, to be honest, each and every one of these superhero movies are very similar in part to how an activist would put together their film, their origin stories. These are characters who are choosing altruism over the pursuit of power and wealth. These are people that are usually getting superpowers at the time when, at the time of trauma or drama. They may be getting those through times of destiny or chance. Much in the same way as you will find activists when they're putting together their projects will consider their projects to be. So I point them towards the way in which these superheroes' narrative structure are framed. So in terms of how you can approach your story, you can look towards these films and you can present them in a way to help audiences engage. And that's the critical thing. Now, a friend of mine said to me a couple of days ago that making a documentary is like trying to capture lightning in a jar. But making a feature film is like creating lightning. And there's going to be certain times where your activist filmmaker may find a subject doesn't lend itself perfectly to a documentary format. So in that instance, one of the things that you're able to do is to create fictional heroes. Heroes that are perhaps bringing together hundreds of different stories that are influenced by real life.
You picked a side after 9/11? I didn't have to. It was picked for me.
Step over here, sir.
So is there a problem?
He's an employee. Follow me, please.
Have you ever been a member of a terrorist organization? How do you feel about the United States of America?
Agent Ford, I love the United States of America.
So in Mira's film, the approach was to create characters that audiences around the world would be able to connect with. Casting your net wider, if you will. Creating characters that are influenced by true stories from all the hundreds of different accounts from around pre and post 9/11. The reason for doing that, and one of the ways in which you can create bigger impact by doing a film with fictional heroes, is you're able to create familiarity for the audience. Now, I'm not just talking about the fact that you can cast this with big-name stars. I'm talking about how the approach of the characters towards a subject and how that can be reflected upon their lives day to day. Now, if you can create that connection for an audience, it's that helps them feel comfortable to discuss these very complex and sensitive topics with their family, with their friends. And that is actually where real change gets made. The film is just the spark. And that's why focusing on narrative structure is so important. Now, while also talking about fictional heroes, there might be a topic that is even more rangy or sensitive that you require another method. And this is a method that I call the Trojan horse method, or the anti-hero.
Infatuation.
Chichi Ramu.
2 points for Bangalore.
Bottoms up.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to say this now. This is a bit of a unique example, okay? This is not your typical subject matter for an activist film. This Brahman project was brought to us, presented by the Indian New Wave director Q. And one of the things that he wanted to do was use comedy and farce to highlight the issues surrounding sexism and the caste system, the very antiquated caste system in India. So by creating these characters that you can laugh at, you're essentially able to hold a mirror up to society and give them a way, show them how not to be, essentially. So this is the thing about heroes. They look after us, they provide us with hope, they validate morals, solve problems, and they provide us with entertaining stories which we can learn from. And the fact that we are all now living online in these self-made echo chambers, the fact that these heroes that we watch in cinemas or on films and documentaries at home, They have the ability to reach across borders, across political party lines, and they can connect with an audience on a very basic human level. And that's something very, very powerful indeed. Thank you.